Hey everyone, before we dive right into the action, I wanted to let you know that I stream these things on Twitch, and if you wanna hang out with me while I'm live, you can follow the channel, will be the first link in the description. Okay, we're getting the black pieces and the opponent opening up with a king's pawn. So we'll just go for the King's Indian defense, see what my opponent has in mind, whether he's gonna occupy the center with the pawns or not. He could potentially go for the Grand Prix attack from his move order. So he's definitely having in mind to play something like knight c3 and go for the fianchetto against everything. And by the way, if you're looking for a strategy to simplify your 1e4 game as a beginner, I think that's definitely very reasonable, like exactly what my opponent is doing. Because like honestly, best would be I think to just go c5 and transpose into the Sicilian. But I think for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna be going for the normal King's Indian setup, and instead of playing c5, I will just try to go for e5. Could actually go e5 even now, but I think I'll just do it the normal way, just by developing the knight and castling. Okay, by the way, there's like a pretty funny idea after c5 castle to go h5. I've noticed like Ding Liren playing that once. So do you guys actually want to go for that? I think we can try to play the aggressive way, or I could just do the simple one and castle. I think I'll just keep it simple, go for sure castle. Just want to like let you know that's an option. Plays with d3, so I should definitely be supposed to play with, I'm definitely supposed to like play with c5, but yeah, that's gonna lead to the Sicilian. I think we can play it though. Yeah, at this point, like when opponent simply is refusing to put the pawn in the center, then okay, like c5 is good move, even though like in most of the peak positions you have this plan. I see simply no reason why not to play c5 and get into like the normal lines. Plan would be knight c6 and then to expand on the queen side, and basically white is gonna go like all in on this side, and we have to go onto the other side and try to seek counterplay there. It's a pretty double-edged game. Computer generally favors black, but from a human perspective, it's definitely way trickier than that. Because computer is always like able to find easy defensive moves that humans are generally struggling to. And from my experience as well, I can say I'm not like a huge fan of going against the what is this name, like the Closed Sicilian or hashtag the Grand Prix. That could also be leading to similar positions. I'm not like a huge fan of playing against them because white's plan is like always super simple and straightforward. You do one wrong step and can already be in trouble. So even though computer and theory in general will categorize this opening as being kind of a sideline, not super good objectively, I think Closed Sicilian is definitely a smart pick for a beginner while trying to pick up e4 in his repertoire. Just gonna go for like the normal play. I don't like knight f4 for my opponent. I think he's just supposed to go for the pawn play. Knight usually goes to g3, so I don't think focusing on the d5 square is appropriate because I can always play e6 if needed. So yeah, knight e5 I could take once. If he takes with a knight, I could perhaps try to collect the pawn from b2. But what happens if they take with a pawn? Do we like that? Not sure I like him taking with a pawn. It's got a bit of pressure on the e7 pawn. I think we'll just continue our play and ignore that for now. Just before a5 and try to create counterplay on the queen side. Rook b1, just gonna go with a5. Pushing the pawn, ideally getting it all the way to a3. When we get the pawn to a3, if they go b3, typical maneuver could be something like this. Bring the knight to b5 and these squares are generally like pretty weak. Okay, it's like a bit strange now with the knight on d5 because can always trade, but trying to explain it as we've had like an normal position, let's say. So okay, against e5, I think he has a trick. He wants like knight f6 and then these drops. We can actually take with a knight, and there is, yeah, nothing that I can see white having for the sacrificed pawn. So we might be very well just up a pawn at this point. And yet play bishop b7 next. And you know what we do when we're having the extra pawn. Just gonna be initiating a lot of trades. If we can get into the endgame phase, that would be amazing. So against c3, don't really need to react against that. Just bishop b7, preparing trades. If cb, we always go and capture towards the center with the a pawn. And currently I'm threatening to go knight takes on d5. And in case of knight takes, we have pawn on d3 that will remain undefended. So after they trade, you don't have to like take with a pawn when you can like simply take with a bishop and keep the healthy pawn structure ready to exchange light squared bishops as well. And basically whatever trade we can make will generally be quite good for us with the extra pawn. So against knight d5, you could think about this. And then knight takes on d3, winning a pawn, which is like perhaps doable. But I would say generally you wanna try to keep the bishop pair for as long as you can. Problem with this might be though that if I'm going bishop g7, bishop g5 can be a little bit annoying. So I think we'll just go with like the greedy approach. Like if I take, he still has maybe bishop h6 at the end. So yeah, that looks to be winning the exchange. So we can't really grab that pawn as I initially thought. So perhaps bishop g7 and against bishop g5 we could play f6 and then e6. It looks a bit ugly, but the pawns won't stay like that forever, so just gonna go for what my initial instinct was. Bishop g7, keeping the bishops, and this is a big threat because then we can trade and keep healthy pawn structure, have no weaknesses. Everything is like super compact, and that would be, I think, a pretty big step into the right direction. The only critical move though is if they're going for the pin. I'm planning to play f6. You know that you're never supposed to play f6 as they say, but in this position I think it's like a pretty good move because it's winning a tempo, and then we can play e6, getting rid of the knight, and eventually we'll open up the bishop with f5. So f6 will only be like temporary move against the bishop g5 idea by white. And okay, if in case they don't go bishop g5, of course, we just play with e6, exchange enemy fianchetto bishop, which is like pretty powerful. And after that, could think about like developing the queen. Notice that I've developed all my pieces, and last piece that we develop is generally the queen. As long as there are no like concrete theory that's involving an early queen development, I think you should try to focus on developing your minor pieces first, then occupying the open files with the rooks, and last we develop the queen as a rule of thumb. Of course, it like really depends on the specific scenario and so on, but this is like a pretty useful guide that you can have if you're not like familiar with the opening theory and just trying to get a game basically. So against f4, opponent is pretty much going for the counterattack, and I think like the simple way to do this would be ed5, and after they take, just take back with a pawn. But because you know we're such a huge fan of exchanging, we're gonna be taking with a bishop, because having the extra material, just going for like a lot of trades, could take on g2 and then just take on e5, could take it this way as well. I think just to keep it super simple, I'm gonna do it in this fashion and just take on e5 with the bishop, having two extra pawns on bishop h6, just bishop back, Can trade the bishops, that's also fine. Don't think opponent can like really avoid this, because on bishop f4 maybe we can simply play e5, and even though we're like blocking the bishop for time being, then we can advance with d5 and so on. And against queen e3, I think queen d7 move cannot really be that bad, preparing to either go queen b7 or queen c6, occupying this powerful diagonal, because opponent is lacking the fianchetto bishop. And then we are having ideas to basically open up the b file, so just b takes on c3, as in this case, and he's unable to recapture because now rook is no longer defended because of his last move, which was rook f2. So we get to win basically another pawn, and after that I think should be pretty easy win. See the trade, gonna simply recapture, still threatening to take on b2 on the next move. Plays d4. If we take, he wants to take with a queen and then pick up the pawn on c3. So I think even better to simply take on b2, perhaps with a rook. Okay, so after the rook takes, gonna be recapturing. Rook takes on b2, and cd4 seems to be like the simple move. Takes with a check, we block with e5. Could also throw in this check first. I think might be even a bit more precise, so that if we would have gone cd, queen takes, e5, he has maybe queen d5. So throwing in this check just to keep control over all the critical lines, and now we can easily take, go e5, and then it will be a matter of bringing the rook into the game. So probably we're gonna be playing rook c8 next, and having ideas to play like queen h1 and infiltrate into my opponent's backyard. So this would be an idea, followed by rook c1, and king is gonna be pretty vulnerable to these mating ideas. So I think we're gonna be doing exactly that, threatening queen takes on h2, sacrificing the d6 pawn. And okay, opponent runs out of time, but the position was also completely winning. Thanks a lot for making it this far into the video, and in case you're looking for more episodes from the same series, make sure to click one of the videos that will appear on the screen. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you around on the channel. Take care.